What's up, everybody? It's A.T.A. Episode 3, All Things Alternative Podcast. It's been a minute. Life has been a little crazy. When we started this podcast, we are like, yeah, let's do a bi-weekly thing and, get 2 out a month. And we started this thing like late April, I think, or early May. And here we are at Episode 3. So plans have unfortunately gone a little off track, but here we are. We're making do. Today, we're going to be talking about Stranger Things and all things related to Stranger Things, a kind of broad overlook of the show and the most recent season, and we're going to talk about new Pokemon, as not that there's anything particularly new like this week, but there's a whole flood of information that's kind of been coming in the past few months about the new game. A bunch of stuff leaked and then was confirmed as true, and that's like the pretty much the most recent announcement about the game. Is a bunch of stuff that was leaked was confirmed to be true, and we're just gonna dive into all that and try and smash this out in about an hour or so. So I'm ready
Cool,
to get the
cool.
ball rolling.
Before we get that ball rolling, let's get a background of what we've been up to for the past month or so that we've been MIA on ATA. So you went to you as everyone knows, you live out of a suitcase at this point. You went to Japan. So tell us a little bit about that. Tell me a little bit like what was it like? How was the culture different, and what was your like overall experience going over there?
So I went to Japan for 12 days total. 4 of those days were dedicated to a tour I was doing because I tour managed for a band called Vane, and I was out there with them. Um, so those 4 days were pretty much going to metal and hardcore shows, and the band I work for playing the shows and all that. It was in Osaka for like 3 days, then we moved over to Tokyo, or 2 days in Osaka, then Tokyo. But basically, Japan is amazing across the board. They anything, if you're watching this podcast, odds are you think things like video games and music and art of all mediums, movies, TV, whatever, you probably think all that stuff is really cool. Well, they think it's even cooler over there. The entire culture is built around, all of those things. It's ingrained in every fabric of existence there, especially in Tokyo. So being there on the music end was amazing because they appreciate American bands so much, and all the shows were sold out. It was crazy. Um, but additionally, like having like 8 days to kind of see it for what it was absolutely just like astonishing, man. It was so cool. It's a somewhat different culture. Like it's a little more although it's like hustling and bustling and there's a lot of people in the same way that you'd imagine like in a giant metropolis out here. Like it's a very quiet, reserved culture, but all in all, like they just are about all things music, TV, movie, video game, fashion, etc., and they have no problem showing you. Um, all in all, just had a really great time there. It's not as much of a change of pace as you'd think, and honestly, I think that's why I had such a nice time. In addition to, I mean, of course, I'd have a nice time no matter what because it's Japan, but it didn't feel all that foreign. It felt foreign in only good ways,
Kind of like
It,
vaguely familiar, like where you've been all my life,
for sure,
with a
absolutely.
with a Japanese flavor on it.
Exactly, 100%. And with that said, like I can't say I've had that same feeling with like doing like mainland Europe when I toured over there, or you know UK to a degree because there's no language barrier. But even then, like it just Japan.
How was dealing with the language barrier? How did you guys end up communicating?
So it wasn't that bad. Most people out there, especially in Tokyo, because we were in such like a heavily populated area, um, most people out there they were taught English functionally, like as a language to write and read in their public schooling. The thing about it is though, they don't really learn to speak it and articulate it. So like they will usually be pretty familiar with English and how it's spoken, but they can't quite do it themselves. So they'll understand what I'm saying, and then they'll try their best to either answer or explain to me that they can't speak English. And a lot of the time, like honestly, it just came down to like passing an iPhone back and forth with the Google Translate and just kind of having these busted Google Translate conversations that all in all like get you through what you had to do.
Yeah.
And also there were tons of people I met there who spoke fluid, like perfect English, and they also sometimes served as a translator and just made things super easy. So all in all, like really great trip. And if I had the power to do it, whether it be for touring or otherwise, I want to go to Japan at least, at least once every other year until the day I die. Like it's the coolest place on earth. And if I could live there for an extended period of time, I would take the opportunity to do such.
Yeah, it definitely is. It sounds like a really cool experience, and I'm super jealous. That's so sick. How did the shows turn out over there? What was Vane drawing across the pond?
The tours were, the headlining band was a band called Crossfaith, which is from Japan. They've toured the US a bunch of times, like a metalcore, rap, hardcore hybrid. They do like a whole bunch of different stuff. But they're really big over there. They're from Osaka originally. I think they all relocated to Tokyo, if I remember them telling me right. But they're really big over there. And then on the rest of the tour was Injury Reserve, who's a rap group from over here. They're like adjacent to like JPEG Mafia. It's like alt rap type stuff. So they have like some footing in like the world of alternative music too, although they've frankly gotten pretty popular this year. A Japanese rapper named Jin Dog, who opened the shows, and then Vane as well. And the attendance for Vane was very clearly there because they had never done a just strictly like hardcore tour out there, meaning like they'd never done like a DIY like grassroots like hardcore and punk tour over there. They went straight to like a metal tour. So the amount of kids that have wanted to see that band for quite a long time, because again, Japan gets obsessed with things in the States. They get obsessed with like our music, our culture, and it's no different with hardcore music. They're obsessed, and people out there love Vane. So although the shows sold out and were dominantly selling for Crossfaith, like the Vane presence was clearly there, and there were some very special reactions. I am happy I got to see while I was out there. Kids
did the Japanese kids mosh?
Oh, so hard, like crazy.
A lot of Japanese pit daddies.
Dude, it literally like psychopathic shit. They have a reputation for that, but
really,
Japan was crazy. Yeah, Japan.
That's so weird because like you were mentioning before that that the culture is so like reserved. So that's
that's the thing. They definitely look to like aggressive and alternative music as some level of release.
Yeah,
because they go nuts,
cool.
man.
I mean, it's an outlet. It's an outlet to everybody over here. It seems like.
Yeah, so. Exactly. It's no different over there. But they have this reputation of literally being like acrobatic motherfuckers in the pit. Like they love like cartwheels and front flips and crazy shit.
That's awesome.
We can't do that shit over here. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have that skill set.
Nah, not without being like goofy. But
no way. But they're clean. Ultimate point, Japan, fucking awesome. If you have the means to go under any circumstance, whatever it may be, go. It's good for your life.
100p. Sounds like Pog.
Real Pog, 100%. Absolutely.
All right. I think this is a good time to transition into the meat and potatoes of the podcast. So I think we agreed to start with Stranger Things, right?
Yes. That was the agreed upon thing.
Cool.
Now, with that said, before we dive into this, I just want to cite, obviously, to some degree, we have missed the train on this one at some level. The season 3 came out, it got talked to death. But the reason I cite that we missed the train is because if the people watching, listening, whatever, to this podcast, there are inevitably going to potentially be some spoilers, probably. But at this point, we missed the train, which means you did too.
If y'all haven't watched the new season by now, come on. Like, it's 8 episodes. It took me forever. It took me forever. I was trying to watch it with Katie. You guys might know her. She's my girlfriend. I was trying to watch it with her, and it took me, like, absolutely forever. So if you haven't watched it by now, sorry. You missed the boat on this one.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We can't hold back. And now, don't get me wrong, like, you should go watch it, but we can't potentially reserve saying anything about anything with that in mind. But I think I want to start this off by saying that potentially, I think this most recent season of Stranger Things is my favorite of the 3. I think 1 is objectively probably the best just because it set the tone for everything and functions in a very unique way. But storytelling-wise, action-wise, across the board, season 3 just
Oh,
it fucking I loved it, man. It was so
I
great.
I 100% agree. I think this was like my favorite subjectively. I don't know if it's objectively the best, but just the storytelling this season was off the hook, dude. And they did such a phenomenal job in just 8 episodes building up to this fever pitch of a point, and like we had so many good meaningful character arcs. I mean, we saw who was your favorite? Who do you think was the MVP of this season?
So that's a good question. I think out of the bunch, I was most I don't want to see this almost isn't properly answering your question, but I was most intrigued with Billy this season.
Yes.
However, I don't think he's MVP. Like, because I mean, frankly, he was on the bad
Obvious,
side.
obvious
But
MVP. Obvious MVP for the season is obvious. I think Hopper's the one
yeah,
this time around, right?
Hopper definitely he shined this season. Hopper shines in general. Hopper has a good history, but this was frankly, I think they made so much of this season about Hopper. Even the final his final note to L at the end, like that letter was in my mind less about L and herself, but more about him and himself and what he had gotten through in this
Yes,
season.
kind of establishing Hopper, like he has this kind of cold and not cold, but he's got like this rough exterior, and I feel like in that letter it kind of established a little bit of like vulnerability and sensitivity
Absolutely.
in his character, which is a side that I think you have somebody who died, you have somebody who you want the audience to have an emotional connection with. That's a very important side to establish
For sure.
for the character.
They used that letter as like a device to like kind of like you know round off the whole like yes he's like emotionally entrenched in L and cares about her endlessly, but again that letter was so much more about him and finally kind of like stamping yes Hopper feels but also like Hopper's a great example of like a generationally like functionally as a human completely different type of person because people I mean imagine like being someone Hopper's age in the time that the show takes place. Like he is such a well-crafted character in that regard and just like what it is to not be a vulnerable person in that period in time, like the idea that you should be vulnerable and be open about how you feel in a variety of ways, that like that's a fairly recent notion, you know what I'm saying, in the
Yeah,
world.
within like probably the past 10 years or so. I want to say.
Exactly. Like there was definitely like a rejection of being like that.
Yeah, and
Societally speaking.
given that the show takes place in the '80s, correct?
Hmm.
That's especially unique for that time period.
Exactly. To see that's why it's so much more meaningful in terms of him and his development as a character, because like being that vulnerable, being that emotional, being that raw is just like that's a rarity.
Yeah.
And I think the writers did an excellent job with that in this season. All in all, I think they I was watching a couple of like YouTube videos on the set designs and like how they kind of like came together writing the season and stuff, and I liked how they kind of used the mall as a home base, pretty much set and function wise for like the story.
Mm-hmm.
Everything kept going back to the mall,
Yeah.
and not only was it Starcourt Mall, exactly. Not only was it a great like flash of like of period, because it's like, oh, teens going to the mall, kind of like getting into this like commercial world of what it is to like spend your time and bum around a mall and be a mall rat in the 80s, but it was also just functionally great for the show because it allowed them to kind of keep going back to this one scene and setting. And they didn't need to like build a bunch of sets. They didn't need to like bounce around the town. They were able to like play off this massive set they potentially had, which was a real mall, by the way.
Yeah.
Like Starcourt Mall, it was functioning while they were filming. They literally had this giant tarp up, and for the part of the mall that was shut down while they'd film, and literally people were, shopping and going about their day behind it, which is insane.
That's crazy.
From a cinematography standpoint, and even just like audio engineering across the board, like that is a feat that they filmed what the season is in that setting. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like That's absolutely tremendous. But one thing I want to bring to the table right off the bat is, do you think Hopper's dead now that you've
Um, I mean, absolutely, absolutely not. Right? We saw the Russians at the end reference like that there was an American in the cell. I
mm-hmm.
think I think if Hopper was dead, we would have seen it. Right? Like
We would assume so.
he is probably like top 3 most important characters in the show. He's like it's like him and 11 right now, who are I would say Hopper, Will, Byers, and 11 are probably the 3 most important focused on characters in the show. And I feel like if one of those 3 characters is to die, which could easily happen. I mean,
Sure.
one thing I notice about like all great television shows is that main characters like inevitably they die because it does. Unfortunately, like that makes the not unfortunately, but that does make the audience feel. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
it does pull on those emotional strings. I noticed it in Game of Thrones. I just wrapped up watching The Sopranos, and like God, man, so many characters that you love and hate, both die in The Sopranos. So I think
I mean,
I think it's going to happen ultimately in Stranger Things. Like I don't know if it's going to be Hopper, but I mean we did see our first death this season in Billy. I think it's confirmed that Billy is not coming back.
Yeah.
I don't think he's in the Upside Down. That would definitely be a curveball. But
the way he died too, it's just like Bob, an example. Like
yes.
we saw him visibly get torn apart.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no shot.
Yeah, and
Bob's
not coming back. So there's no Bob now, in the Upside Down.
If Bob and Hopper were both in the Upside Down, that would be an insane like romantic plot twist, but would be a huge force.
Yeah, because then if Bob comes back, you got the love triangle with Mrs. Byers, Hopper, and Bob. So that would definitely be interesting.
There would be no functional shot of that. It'd be a huge force if they did it.
Yeah, well, it would definitely feel really forced. Like they definitely with season 3, not only did they tell a great story, pretty much from nothing. This season, like they had a pretty closed door with season 2, and this season they kind of just had a blank canvas. And they have a great segue from season 3, a clear segue from season 3 to now season 4, which I guess we'll see in 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, exactly, in more time than I ever want.
Yeah.
But, that it's good though. It's good they have the whole like Russian Cold War plot line in the function now. Also, now that I've thought on it a little more, to return to your previous question, as much as I loved Billy, again, it's like I said earlier, I don't think he's like the MVP of the season. I think a lot of love for Steve this season.
Dude, Steve has had a phenomenal character arc. From being this douchebag season 1 to this. He's like pretty much a fan favorite now. He's just this lovable character. Absolutely. I mean, we see him make that big save at the end, crashing the car into Billy.
Mm-hmm. Dude, that shit.
It was great. It was great. That was one of those things where you're sitting on your couch watching the show and you can't help but to grin. You're just like
exactly. And also, even at the beginning of the season, to see how he kind of has this like fall from grace as a character, like getting now out of high school, literally working at this ice cream shop, not going to college, kind of just like, empty-handed coming out of high school where he was like built to be this classic trope, like the man character.
Big shot, big man on campus kind of.
A very nice 180 for his character that, again, just he was lovable even as a douchebag. He was a lovable character even when he was an awful guy. And now to kind of see him be humbled a little bit and have his character continue to just like overperform
and continue to go through it. He just like Steve over delivers every time. Whoever plays that actor does a phenomenal job.
Yeah,
I don't know his name off the top of the dome, but he really kills it. One of my favorite character arcs in the show. That's the thing about the show.
Joe Keery?
Joe Keery. His last name is definitely Keery. So I don't know if his first name is Joe, but that's the thing about the show, man. They just managed to juggle so many phenomenal character arcs. Like you have 11, you have Hopper, you have Mrs. Byers, you have Will, you have Dustin, who is it's just like this all-star cast that literally got Thanos snapped into existence. Like it's
straight up, dude. Especially
out of nowhere.
Season 1 was so. Like everyone who's been involved in the show said it. Season 1 was very low budget, low expectation, working with what they got, and to have it just smash into this astronomical
Yo,
success.
you could definitely tell that the budget has definitely gone way up for
Scaled
this
up,
season.
yeah.
By the way, there was a lot of the CGI looked fantastic.
Yeah, no, it looked
That
great,
the
100%.
monster at the end, whatever it was called, what are those called? It's not a
Mind Flayer?
the Mind Flayer, yeah, the Mind Flayer at the end looked fantastic. Genuinely awesome. This season, I noticed it actually got the show itself. I felt like kind of dialed up on the gory scale.
Oh, definitely. And actually, some of the cast of the show, in a variety of things I was watching, like press, like news interviews, that was one thing they cited. They were like, "Hey, it gets gorier,
Legitimately violent. I mean,
yeah,
we
it's
literally
crazy.
we literally go for like we go from this like I feel like season 1 was like pretty kid friendly, honestly. Like maybe
Yeah, for
PG-13,
sure.
maybe.
Definitely a little more in the realm of like generally
So
appropriate.
scaling it from like 1 to 10, I would give season 1 like a 4 on the violence scale. Season
Yeah,
2, maybe like 5 to 6. I think about the
yeah, because
scenes,
there
the
was that
scenes
weird.
of Will like throwing up the mind flayer and stuff like and Bob dying before us, stuff like that.
Also, think about that weird. I think it was episode 6, the one very polarizing episode where it was like Elle was on this weird, almost like Marvel DC world, like superhero, supervillain, like I'm on the run and look like a steampunk character.
Yeah.
Met the other girl, I forget which number she was, that had powers. There were like guns firing and stuff in that episode. It's just a little more scaled up, violence wise too. But this is definitely
But
peak
season
performance
season
violence-wise.
three, season three was like straight up. They took it from a 5 to 6, and they straight up like dialed it up to a 9 or 10.
Absolutely,
That the hospital scene was unreal, dude.
dude. That
People,
shit.
this
Oh my
show
god,
like there had to like you had to have like a yeet counter while watching the show because everybody was just getting tossed around, like thrown
dude,
into walls and
straight up.
shit. Like it was so fucking violent. People were getting stabbed, like punched in the like people's faces were getting smashed in. It was really startling to me because that's not what
Dude.
I expected when watching. When sitting down to watch Stranger Things, it's a very
Not,
far cry from the first season. Not that I'm against it, but it's just like whoa.
no, dude, it's a huge change. Absolutely. And also, I just want to point out, like, I can't remember her name, but when Nancy goes into the basement where the old lady is, and she's like eating.
Yo, when she was eating the fucking fertilizer,
Dude,
that was
that
so.
shit was so
That's
insane.
some shit that would have like if I was 8 or 9 years old would have scared the shit out of
Traumatized me, dude.
Like
Absolutely.
when that
Dude.
like that image of her like turning her head and like she had the soil all over her face, and then when she was bugging out again in the hospital and she was like lighting up. You remember that?
Dude.
She was like,
Yeah,
it was fucked. It was like legitimately unsettling.
dude, straight up. And again, it goes back to this like scaling up in like pretty much like the horror, I guess, components of the show. Not that it's by any means a horror show, but it has this thriller suspense vibe. It clearly takes like a lot of influence from like 80s horror, like Stephen King era horror.
Yes.
And now they've not only modernized it, but they have the benefit of modernizing it visually too. And
Exactly.
they're doing a great job.
Exactly. They're definitely taking full advantage. They're running with the ball now. They clearly have a fat budget after, the huge success of the first 2 seasons. So why not? Why not dial it up to 10? I like it. It's their canvas and they're going to paint it how they want. So
Exactly. Going back, a couple of other things I want to hit on in terms of the season that I appreciated. Again, these are like generally noted things. None of these are like hot takes or anything, but just stuff I did appreciate. I liked the more like coming of age, the young teenager components to the characters this season. I liked the Elle and Mike relationship dynamic. I liked the
super entertaining to have Hopper involved with that whole thing. It was just like this classic dad
especially
watching
at
over.
that time, like dad watching over, you will respect my daughter scenario. Like the Elle and Max friendship too.
Definitely developed this season.
Exactly that.
Good
And
component there. Good on-screen chemistry between those two.
Absolutely. And then on top of that, like the Elle, like the shopping scene, them hanging out, the Elle kind of like finding herself as like a normal individual.
Yes.
All those things, like again, these have been talked to death about in YouTube videos, fucking Twitter threads, this and that. But I can't go without saying I appreciated those components to the story because I can think, I look back to even in this era, in our current time, I look to being a teenager around that same age, 12, 13 years old, and I can appreciate a lot of the, more or less sort of trope issues that they just threw into the plot line because I think they're vastly relatable in whatever.
Yeah, they did
way
a
it
great
manifests
job
itself.
developing Elle's character and making her, like you said, more relatable to the everyday viewer. If I'm a
Exactly.
14 or 15-year old, like I'm so vested in the show, it's not even funny. I mean, I'm
100%.
23 years old and I'm vested in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
show. So
exactly. Like I'm hyper vested now, but imagine being someone who's dealing with that, lack of sense of self then, and seeing it in like your favorite TV show being portrayed for you. There's probably a stabilizing component to that in terms of your own shit, whatever you might be potentially dealing with as
yes,
you get older.
yeah.
Um,
The entire show, the cast, like it just really has this charm about it that I can't put my finger on it and describe what it is, but it has this charm as if like they can do no wrong. It has something that other shows on the same platform, Netflix, does not have.
Agreed.
Um,
I think season
this
two
intangible.
was their test of that. I
Mhm.
think season two was was like the first time the show received any level of real criticism.
Mhm.
What I guess like you know taking to that notion, but even then, a show that imagine like let's remove like all the details of what the show is. Let's just like boot the function of the show, like the skeleton of it, over into another series that's not called Stranger Things. Season two would probably be viewed a lot more critically if it wasn't Stranger Things than it actually was. Because it's Stranger Things, it definitely got like a break to a degree.
For
Because
sure.
I
For
like
sure.
season two, but it wasn't amazing. You know what I'm saying? It had
It
its
wasn't super memorable. I feel like
yeah,
they really delivered a memorable season with season 3. I mean,
agreed.
season 1 obviously was the objective success that it was. Season
Mhm.
2 was it was a fun watch. I'm not going to sit here and shit on it all day, but
Yeah, but it definitely it had its flaws. It lived pretty much like intensely in the shadow of season one, and I think that also is like a bone I can give it. It's like, hey, it's a hard season to follow up. Season one is like that's tough shit to follow up,
yes.
but like all in all, like I think even the writers have expressed minimally, but here and there that like season two, like they know it wasn't perfect. They know it wasn't like the Stranger Things like golden thumbs up quality
Yes.
that they've now, I think, with season three
Yeah.
solidified that they can still do that. I think,
With that being said, it wasn't like the Game of Thrones thumbs down like into the gutter like,
yeah,
loud disapproval from their
exactly, agreed,
audience.
agreed. But with going back to what you said, I think if it wasn't Stranger Things, if you just booted the show over and gave it a different name without the reputation, like
Nobody would be
it
talking about it.
it not even nobody would be talking about it, but it wouldn't be getting a break
Yes.
on its like
On its
weaker
flaws.
points. Yeah.
Yes.
But another thing I want to talk about Stranger Things wise is Elle's powers gone. You think they're gone forever at this point?
No, I don't think you can strip her of the power forever. No.
I
I think inevitably they're going to come back. I think we might see a whole season of Elle being normal and then regaining the powers at the end.
I think
Um,
the same exact thing. Exactly that.
I think that
Is what
makes for a good story and another layer onto the character that is Elle. Make her even more relatable
for
to the
sure.
everyday viewer.
And also like even that as like a storytelling device, having something that made you so defined and then being stripped of it altogether, I'm sure in a variety of walks of life, that's something people can relate to.
Yeah, yeah. It's
So
and it's a good bit of adversity for Elle to deal with. Like I said, it's another layer. It strengthens the character arc, I think.
for sure. Now looking at like the move dynamic, like the cast pretty much gets split because the buyers move. Um, that's obviously a tricky situation for everybody because long distance friendship, relationship wise, whatever, is hard. But
Especially
in
at that
that
age.
era, at that
In that
age,
era, yeah.
man, like this is the internet. You don't have FaceTime.
There's no FaceTime, there's no Discord. Like it's a straight up phone call or a letter.
Hmm.
So I think that's something that they're gonna have to deal with for the entirety of the season. I think eventually the buyers will end up coming back once Hopper. I think ultimately the ultimate destination for Nancy Byer, I'm sorry, Mrs. Byers and Hopper is, you know, to be together. I think that's the ultimate destination if Hopper is alive,
If it
which
comes back, yeah.
yeah, I think it's safe to say he is. I think that's their ultimate destination is that they're gonna end up being together, one way or another. So I think they do come back and reunite the cast, but I think it's gonna be a season of adversity, season 4, in more ways than one, and you know that being one of them.
Agreed. Also worth noting, and I think maybe this is like the sweet spot to bounce off of Stranger Things and kind of conclude on it and jump over to Pokemon. Um, but something I read online, it was like a little article talking to the two brothers that created Stranger Things. They have like a cast of like 4 writers, and then there's the 2 brothers that manifested the show entirely, uh, directed, etc. Um, and they were saying that like season 2, season 3, like the way they write this show is they take pretty much like they look for like something that sticks functionally and they build off of that. They don't have this explicit like I'm writing the sequel, I'm writing uh the next chapter type of writing. Like an example, like the way they wrote season 3, it all started with the mall. They're
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, the mall is the starting point. What about malls? What about being a kid in the 80s going to the mall? What would this affect the cast of the characters' lives at the point in which the story last ended? And it was the same way for season 2. They build off like these random starting points. And what they said is right now, because again, they're not writing sequels here. They're not like, okay, what is a logical place to immediately continue the story from? Um, what they said is that they might step away from following the buyers as much next season, which is potentially interesting. Because obviously it, you know, that's like the magnifying glass family of the entire series. Like it all
Yeah,
functions.
it's been heavily
Follow them.
centered around Will. I mean, it wasn't as much about Will this season as it was the first 2.
Definitely not, but it still was a lot about their family. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, you are right about that. One thing I
So
want to touch upon before we bounce off is, do you think there was like a lot of like, so we talked about how they dialed up the gore and everything. I also noticed like they didn't shy away from like the violence against the kids. You had Billy, who's, you know, over 18 at this point. He's graduated high school, like beating the shit out of some kids and like throwing them into walls and whatnot. Do you think they're overstepping their boundaries with that, or is that fair game for them?
I personally do not think it is. However, I have like a pretty not reserved opinion about a lot of things like that. You know what I'm
Do you
saying?
think
Like
it'll catch them some heat? Do you think it has caught them some heat?
I don't think so
I,
because I
I
haven't
none
seen
that
much
none that
about
I've
it.
heard of, but like I couldn't help but think about watching the show. I was like, man, this like 18 or 19-year-old kid is like literally like out here decking 13
Yeah,
and
just
14 year olds.
duffing children. Yeah,
It was ridiculous.
yeah, for sure. But that's the thing. I think the show in general is cited as like unexpectedly violent, especially this season.
Yeah, for sure.
And I don't know. I think part of, to a degree, obviously there are firm, completely understandable cutoff points, but in my mind, as far as like the ability to create scenes like that artistically, and whether it be a movie, TV show, whatever, like obviously no one wants to see like a child get beat up, but I think if it meets the confines of what you're trying to depict within reason, do what you got to do
At
directionally.
some point, they're gonna have to take some heat, right? Like in this setting,
Yeah,
you
that's what I'm
you
saying.
can't
Like,
just you can't just dump it all on Hopper, right?
yeah,
To get beat
100%.
up.
And that's what
So
I'm saying. Like, if you got it for the sake of storytelling, for creating a emotional reaction to what's going on to the story, if that means fucking L gets thrown up into a ceiling and smashed down onto the floor, like so be it. There's like a adventure component to the show. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yes,
obviously there is no desire to create this like visual representation of violence against children or teenagers, but it's also like, yo, for what they're doing, for their art, for their story, for they're creating moments that elicit a reaction. Do what you got to do. You're not showing a kid get mortally wounded.
Yeah.
You're
If
showing
if it meets the
no shit.
context, if it meets the context, all right.
Yeah, exactly. Like no one wants to see that at an extreme.
Yeah. No one
Obviously.
wants to turn on Stranger Things and be like, ah, shit, like it's time to see some kids get their asses beat. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. But they also are dealing with. They are taking on problems that are traditionally in all things action and adventure. These problems are traditionally things the adults are dealing with at the brunt of. And the thing about Stranger Things is it's the children taking on shit like that. You know what I'm saying? They're taking on like saving the world. So with that in mind, there's violence that comes with that, and it be what it be.
Yep. Agreed. Agreed. I think that's a good point to wrap it up and go to our next topic, which is Pokemon.
Yes,
All
I
right.
agree.
So we're gonna go ahead and play that trailer real quick, guys. We've got the first trailer. It's the original. I know they've done other stuff. We're only gonna do the first one. We're basically gonna react to it, and talk about the game. There's a little bit of controversy about the national decks. We're gonna go into it. Talk about some compare and contrast with old Pokemon games. The merging of the console and handheld audience with the Nintendo Switch. So we're gonna play the trailer
Quite a few
and
changes.
yeah, we're
Yes.
gonna dive right into it. So give me one sec, guys. Here we go. Let's go to full screen. Bam. Okay, we're gonna
Hey,
watch
there
this
it
real
is.
quick. For 3.5 minutes, Joey and I are gonna shut the fuck up and or do you wanna talk over this? It's a
Um.
I think
Well,
I think we could talk over it.
yeah, we can talk here and there. Let's see what's good with it.
All right. So we just started. So right off the bat, like they're flat flexing the most what I think is one of the most
Visually
beautiful parts of the game. Visually, I'm actually gonna turn the music off so we can just talk right over it without any conflict. So visually, like it looks great. I actually like all three starters. Not so
Agreed.
much a fan of Score Bunny, but Sobel and Grookey both look great. Any generation where you can have 2 out of 3 starters look really really good is sick. Um,
Also mirror that sentiment for sure.
uh,
I th-
so so the design for this game is what pops to me. Like this is a Pokemon game in 2019, so it's a little different. But damn, dude, everything just looks so good. Like you see this bird that's on screen right now. Like
yeah, dude.
these animations are off the hook. Like this is the part
The
that I'm
battle
most excited
animations are
about.
amazing. Like the world itself. A lot of people compare the art style to Breath of the Wild, which I totally see and agree with. But with that in mind, like beyond the obvious Breath of the Wild comparisons, look at all these scenes they're showing. This is stuff you literally like dreamt of as a kid playing through
100%.
the Pokemon franchise. Between watching the show and playing the games, this is what your brain put like taking the show plus the games. This is what that equals in your head, and now you're seeing it in real life. You
Yes,
know, absolutely stunning visuals.
it is. It is a gorgeous looking game. So these visuals apparently come at a price. They animate like quite literally every move. They have special animations and whatnot. Uh, so because of that, they claim that they can't fit every Pokemon into this game. So the decks, the national decks
Limited.
here is going to be limited. How limited do you think it's going to be, and what Pokemon are getting left out? Are they just going to take an entire generation and go, sorry, you didn't make the cut? Are they going to take bits and pieces of every generation and be like, this Pokemon doesn't get in?
Dude,
What do you think? What do you think the number that we're looking at is for the national decks? Like, how many Pokemon do you think we're going to see? 6, 7, 800? I don't know.
I'm imagining like 400 to 500 Pokemon
Okay,
in the game total.
that's a fair guess. That's quite a bit biting the dust, though. Do you think
Absolutely.
with all the flack? Do you think with all the flack on the game right now, because that what we just talked about, the limited national decks, that's caught Pokemon a lot of heat. I mean, if it wasn't for that, this game would have flawless hype. But that's the one
Yeah.
thing that people are bitching and moaning about. They're attaching to it. Do you think they're gonna patch these Pokemon in slowly but surely and do it while they can? I mean, they're on the Switch. They can do that. This is 2019.
I think that is the logical way to do it if they're gonna do it at all. Is do like not DLC, because why would you ever have to pay for things that were otherwise already in other games. That would be ridiculous and catch them even more flack. But I think they will slowly but surely. That's like their way of like creating content that doesn't cost money. Is these patches where they potentially maybe seasonally interject Pokemon into the wild. It's like, oh, here's the fall season DLC from September to December. These Pokemon are now available, and you can go and potentially get them. And then when the season passes, like, that's that, and they potentially, obviously, like, no matter what, they would have to patch accordingly across the board. But I don't know. I'm sure they'll find some way, is more so what I'm getting to, that they can appropriately add Pokemon to the game if they're going to do it at all.
Agreed. I think it's in the cards for them, and I think that's a good way to get the heat off of them. Them just saying, "Hey guys, like, we're gonna get to it. It's gonna be on a patch by patch basis, but maybe we'll have the Johto patch, or like if they do like just axe an entire generation and be like, sorry guys, this is a new gen. Like Galar is a new frontier for us. So our oldest gen is gonna be biting the dust here, but we are gonna put a patch in and patch in this entire gen." I think that's a layup, honestly. I think they can do that, and I think it's a good way to kind of continue to push the hype for their game. We see Smash, it goes through dips, right? It goes generally, like, viewership for the game isn't that high outside of tournaments, but when a new Smash patch is coming out, it does get a nice jump. When Joker was coming out and stuff. It's a good way to keep people thinking about your game in the long term. So it actually might work for them really well if they were to do that.
Agreed. I think it would also be a nice addition as well. I think what I imagine is, say we're going off my 500 Pokemon sample size, in theory, which I know doesn't sound like a lot when you think about the entire cast of Pokemon that exists. My thought is they're going to probably introduce 100 to 150 new Pokemon for this game.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even more, because it's a new... this is like the closest thing to like a new fucking IP that they can do. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yes.
This is like the next
ID.
ID. Thank you. My bad. But this is like a big deal.
It's a huge step. This is the merging of their console and handheld audience. I don't think we're going to see another handheld console after this, with the Nintendo Switch Lite being announced.
No, probably not.
It's basically just a handheld Switch. This is it. Like, the 3DS era, it's over. Like, another thing, you really, without going and jumping through a whole bunch of hoops, you can't stream off of a 3DS, and that is a major component for having a good video game audience. You need a Twitch presence for your game.
Accessibility of doing such, for sure. And it's way easier with this, without a question.
Oh yeah, I mean, this Pokemon Sword and Shield might be a top 10 Twitch game for a little bit. I mean, I know Let's Go Pika and Eevee are a pretty dead genre. It has a small kind of cult niche following, and it's more like half a Pokemon game. It's like half of what Fire Red and Leaf Green were as far as remakes go. Kind of just getting a different take, a little side game, but Sword and Shield is a big enough change. It's a whole new generation. I think it's enough to get Pokemon in the conversation again.
Yeah, agreed. And also, like, Pika and Eevee, like, their function as like a game being released marketing wise was like, you have
it was adjacent to Pokemon Go, right?
Exactly. You have this whole generation of kids who potentially never played a Pokemon game, period, but they played Pokemon Go. So the idea is to reintroduce what Pokemon is to the last 20 years of people, and then take what these kids know about Pokemon and fuse the two as like a gateway to what their next Pokemon experience will be.
Yes.
Act
as a merger for their older and younger audiences. Revitalize old fans like us, and ignite the 8-year-olds and 7-year-olds who are now just discovering or rediscovering Pokemon for the first time.
For sure. And I think it did a great job of that, from what I can tell.
Yeah.
I grinded through the game when I got it. I know it wasn't the same for you, but I got it midnight release while I was on tour, and 4 of us bought it, and we all respectively played the game for about 24 hours straight, and I never touched it again. I grinded it as fast as I could.
There
Did
just
everything
wasn't much. There just wasn't much beyond. I think I lost your audio. Can you say something?
saying something,
Okay,
saying something.
you're good.
Okay,
You're good.
my bad.
Um,
But
you're
20,
just
24 hours of gameplay is what it was. You
yeah.
had a full playthrough, an Elite Four, Go Catch Mewtwo. That's that.
Yeah, there really wasn't much post game, which I don't really understand because I just played through Omega Ruby and Sapphire, and Omega Ruby and Sapphire. Once you beat the Elite Four, there was just this phenomenal post game. I don't understand all the heat that game gets. People really seem to not like it because it made the Pokemon games easier. Newsflash, guys, the Pokemon games were always easy.
Yes, very true. Playing through the Pokemon games extremely easy.
Yeah, it was always easy unless you wanted to like Nuzlocke or do a handicap or some special rule set on your playthrough.
Yeah.
Like the Pokemon games are going to be easy, guys.
Like
and EXP shares,
gets
all that stuff. It's not going to change it. It just makes the game a little less grindy. But if you want the game to be grindy, you can make it grindy. It's just
yeah.
some people want it for the casual playthrough. Some people just want to enjoy the game, the storyline, and have that be it. Not everybody
Most people
wants
probably
to
do, honestly. That's like the bulk of their fan base.
yeah, not
You
everyone
know?
wants to do these crazy Nuzlocks, randomized Nuzlocke, and rival locks, etc. That's not for everybody. I think that's cool, but it's not for everybody. But that option is still there if you want. You can always just turn off that EXP share and whatnot.
Also, like if you were a person complaining about that, odds are you're around the both of our ages, and when you were playing the OG games, you probably just fucking action replayed your games anyways, and got a bunch of rare candies, and soiled your own experience
Bitch
at
shit.
that time. So, because I know I did to a degree. I'm not gonna say I'm innocent. I fucked with that, but like, don't be on this like I love grinding purist shit, because that's just
Because you got
you wasn't always
999 rare
like that.
candies in your
That's what I'm
bags right
saying.
now, dude. You got 999 rare candies in your bags.
You got a glitchy Deoxys in your fucking box, like that will shut your game off every time you go to play. So you leave it in your PC box. Like you were there. Don't act like you are.
Hopefully,
Above
Sword and Shield
that
doesn't
shit.
get no bullshit mods, dude. I don't want no fake ass bitch shinies or anything like that.
Nah, fuck that. I don't want any of that. I just want the pure experience of what that game is, whatever it may be,
Yeah.
one way or another.
But no post game for Let's Go Pika or Eevee. I mean, I guess it was
Yeah.
like a kind of a testing the waters kind of deal.
If I could go back to them putting that game out, I personally would kind of invert what they did with Silver and Gold, and I wish they would put Johto in Pikachu and Eevee, so when you beat the game, you could potentially go over and do Gen 2.
Yeah, it
In the
doesn't
same way
seem
that
like
if
the
you beat
hardest.
Gen 2, you can go back and do Gen 1.
Yeah, it doesn't
It's
seem like the
totally
hardest
in their
port
means.
either. It really
No, not at
doesn't.
all. Totally within their means. Especially with Heart Gold and Soul Silver. You have like modernized you really what you would do is you'd port the remakes into that game, and that's one big
Yeah, but
$60
the way those games function is like entirely different. Like Heart Gold and Soul Silver, you still had your little tiny character that was walking like either forward, sideways, or backwards.
Yeah,
These games
sure.
like your avatar, everything is entirely different. So
No, you're right.
that might be easier said than done. So I get it, but it would be nice to have.
Still within their means. They're Nintendo. They have this astronomical art team. Like they have all the resources, the money, the ability.
I mean, we're in the era of the Switch. They have the money.
Yeah,
They have the money to do it. But moving on, what do you think about the design of what these Pokemon look like? What do you think? Which starter are you going for? What do you think?
I think they look, at least in my opinion, and like, hey, maybe I'll catch some flack for this, but in my opinion, I think they look the best that I've seen since Diamond era, not counting X and Y. Like X and Y.
I was gonna agree. I actually like them better than X and Y, especially the legendaries. I thought the X and Y legendaries legitimately looked horrendous.
I agree to a point. Yeah,
Like,
definitely.
those Sword and Shield Pokemon, like those legendaries, those cover Pokemon look fantastic. Those are some Pokemon I'm gonna shiny farm.
Yes, those are Pokemon that like that, at least for me, brings me back to like Johto era.
Yes, they remind me of the legendary dogs, and those everybody loved Raikou, Entei, and Suicune. They were the coolest fucking
goddamn.
Pokemon. They were the
Yes,
coolest.
and they have that energy with their own new take as well. I think art style, like this is the first gen in a while where I'm like, you all look distinguished. You don't look like they're just like making new Pokemon to make new Pokemon. You look genuinely like unique. You know what
Yes,
I'm saying?
that Black Raven Pokemon and
Oh my
like
god, yeah. I have like the list up in front of me. That's Corviknight. I'm gonna butcher these names if I say them, but Corviknight, I think. But
do you
so
want to
sick.
toss me? Do you want to toss me a link?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
It's just straight from the website. I'll send it over to you right now. But it just has everything they've put out thus far. And with that said, I'm personally thinking I might go for Grookey in terms of a starter.
same. I've
I'm
been
always
Grookey
partial
gang.
to monkey Pokemon. I don't know why. Like something
I
about
just
like
I just think the starter like that Grookey is gonna end up being some badass like ape at the end when it's
that's
all
what
said
I'm
and done.
saying, man. Like end game, like max evolve Grookey, like that's wherever that Grookey ends off, whatever its evolution is, it's gonna be sick as fuck.
Yeah. So we
It
got
would blow my mind if
Grookey,
it wasn't.
Scorbunny, Silbul. I'm not so big on Scorbunny. I
Yeah, it's
just
the only one of the three I don't
just
care for.
doesn't really excite me. But like Zacian and Zenta, just these Pokemon look fantastic.
I've also like in general. I mean, I've played them all through the years, through multiple playthroughs of multiple Pokemon games. So I can't say I'm particularly partial to any type out of the three in terms of starter Pokemon.
Oh yeah,
But like,
I flip flopped.
I
I've never been like I only choose water types. Like no, that's
yeah. But
not
I
my deal.
think out of the bunch, if you could accumulate every playthrough I've ever done, I've probably played fire types the least. But that's not saying much because this is through countless playthroughs. I've played them all endlessly. But they're never my first pick, typically.
No, I mean I think it's because they're the most probably the most commonly picked at this point, right? Like
Yeah, I'd say so. They're usually like the common catchers
let's
for
see.
people.
Like Gen 1, definitely the most picked starter had to be Charmander, right? Like
Absolutely.
by a mile. Not to say Blastoise and like Venusaur were bad third legendaries, but Charizard was just so fucking cool, man.
Oh yeah.
Gen
Dude.
2, I think people probably like. Do you think it was Totodile, or you think I think people went for Typhlosion?
Yeah, no, definitely.
I think more
Definitely.
often than not, people went for Typhlosion. That's fire. Gen 3, you had
Cyndaquil was the actual starter. It was Cyndaquil, Kalava, Typhlosion
yeah,
for that gen. But Totodile had like the TV show love. That's why I kind of
yes,
got
yes.
a
Gen
little
3, Gen 3. I actually
Torchic
think
into Blaziken. Absolutely.
think so. I mean
Yeah,
like I think
100%.
Mudkip
Like, hot shit.
Mudkip was pretty popular, but Blaziken
Dude,
definitely was hot shit.
I think because Blaziken was a thing. I think Torchic stole Gen 3 for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But that's just me. I see it that way.
I mean, Gen 4, we had it was Chimchar. God, I don't even remember the starters for Gen 4.
It was fucking
I remember like Torterra and everything.
hang on, hang on.
Pull them up.
Yeah. Gen 4. So this one, the website I just pulled up, it doesn't have it by generation. It just has like the pool of gens. Was it Piplup Gen 4?
Yes,
Piplup was Gen 4?
yes, because Piplup
Who
evolved and Polion was the final evolution.
Yeah. What gen was
Torterra,
Chimchar? Was Chimchar Gen 4?
Chimchar, I think was Gen 4. Yeah. See, like Gen 5 is where it gets muddy because that's where like I kind of fell off interest wise.
Me too. Yeah, 100%. So, unless I'm wrong, it's Chimchar, Piplup, and was it Rowlet that same gen? Or no? Turtwig, maybe?
Turtwig, yeah, it was
Turtwig and
Turtwig.
Torterra. Yeah,
Yes.
that's right. That's right. I sort of know what's going on. That's what I've learned.
Well, I mean, you can see like by that time we were in high school and like we were playing League and shit, and our interest kind of dwindled in
sure.
in Pokemon.
Gen 5 was unfortunately kind of missed me.
Yeah, I played Black and White. I played most of Black and White too, and then X and Y I played
X
through,
and Y
but
is when I picked back up.
I picked back
That-
up.
that
I
was the
played
last
through it,
game
but
I
I honestly don't remember that much about it. I'll be real.
All I remember, I mean, it's been a little bit, but I just remember even for that game being like, damn, the visuals in this game are crazy.
Yeah, it was because that was the first time we got it on the 3DS, and it was a new format. You couldn't just go left, right, up, down anymore. You could go diagonal and shit. It was that was
Okay.
it felt weird. I remember like being like, oh, this feels kind of weird.
Gen 5 was Snivy, Tepig, and Oshawott, excuse me. Uh,
That was definitely an Oshawott game.
yeah, that was
Um,
an Oshawott game for sure.
but I think the point being like mostly the fire Pokemon have been like the hottest starters. No pun intended, but like people more often than not would go to the fire. I don't think that's the case for this gen.
I think for X and Y too, because Fennekin was the starter,
Mhm.
and that was like the Fox.
Yes.
And then Sun and Moon, I forgot.
All the furries are gonna pick Fennekin. I didn't play Sun and Moon. I didn't play Sun and Moon at all.
I should go back and do that because Matt from Vane, I remember when we first started hanging out was around the time that game came out, and he wanted to play, and he was like, "Yo, you got to battle me." And I was like, "I haven't bought that yet. Like, I can't even find my." At the time, I was like, "I can't even find my 3DS charger." I remember we got stuck in a snowstorm in New Jersey, and we were staying at my friend Chris's house, and we were stuck there for 2 days because it was a blizzard. And he just like grinded through all Sun and Moon literally in like a day.
Yeah.
And then
Lee is playing it. Lee is playing it a lot right now. He likes it.
I believe it was well received in general. So
I've heard mixed things, but it's definitely probably worth playing. I don't know.
Maybe I'll
Pokemon games that usually draw mixed reviews usually satisfy me. So because I'm not
me too.
that hard to please.
I'm not hard to sell.
But out of these new Pokemon that I got on the screen right now, like which one really catches your eye? And like, oh, that's so awesome. Either Raleigh or Duraludon. I don't know if Duraludon's going to be a final evolution. It looks like it could be, but Duraludon looks sick. I think it's it's Steel Dragon. Cool cross right there, and looks sick, dude. Look at. I love the comparison to Tyranitar.
Dude, I messed with Dreadnought. Dreadnought's pretty sick.
And look at these animations right here. That looks sick.
Also, Dreadnought being water and rock is pretty sick.
Mm-hmm.
Because those are obviously just like complete like.
Raleigh really catches my eye. I think this Pokemon could end up being like the next, Gen 6's, or is this Gen 7 or Gen 6?
I believe this is 8, right?
Because, 8. Yeah, Ultra Sun and Moon was 7, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in this gen, I think this looks like this gen's Metagross. It could be. Like, this looks like it could have a really sick final evolution. It reminds me of Beldum, like the floating rack. It just reminds me of Beldum. And Metagross was sick shit from Gen 3.
I agree with that. And I generally agree with that sentiment. That's pretty fucking sick.
Just take a look at these legendaries. They don't want to tell us anything about them.
Only thing is he's just a rock type.
Just rock.
Yeah.
His evolution might have a cross. We got Yamper. Looks like Yamper is kind of like this generation's Electric
EV type thing. Well, that's like an electric EV like fandom.
You think this is gonna have a? You think it's gonna have a evolution or not? Kind of looks like I don't think so.
I think so. I think it could.
It definitely could, but I don't know if people want to see this cute Pokemon evolve.
That's why that's why I say Eevee, because obviously Eevee is all about evolutions, but like part of Eevee fandom is Eevee just being Eevee.
Dude, they kill it on the cuteness level of these Pokemon. We got Alcreme right here.
Dude, that's what I'm saying. Like, oh my god, literally like an ice cream fairy type Pokemon. Genuinely fucking nuts.
Dude, this is the one time I think Gigantamax looks pog is when you have Alcreme.
It looks cool, in my opinion, no matter what, but I'm not sure it's a cool thing for the game. I don't like Mega Evolution. I've read up a little bit on this Gigantamax shit. I'm a little more purist. I don't fuck with any of that shit, but I just understand, like, that's, like, the future of the game. It doesn't really matter to me enough where I'd protest it and be like, oh, fuck that. But, like, that's not what I look for in a Pokemon game. But that's also because my lens of what I like about Pokemon is different from the next person and then from the person next to them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I know my opinions might be a little different in that regard. I'm not going to hate on it.
This turtle Pokemon, Dreadnought, I also like the name. That name is great. Dreadnought. It's, how many generations in to keep coming up with good names has got to be tough at this point. And
that's what I'm saying. Perfect
looking Pokemon, perfect name. This looks like it could have a sick evolution.
Name, look, water and rock, man. That's a good fucking combo.
Oh yeah,
that is a great type combo. I think he's sick. And imagine a fucking evolution for him. Like, imagine if he's got 2 evolutions. Imagine like a 3rd evolution, dude. I can't even wrap my head around how cool that would look.
Yeah. I'm gonna watch this Gigantamaxing trailer. I'm gonna play it for us real quick. Again,
Okay.
no audio. We can talk over it.
Also, real quick, Corviknight, that Raven Pokemon, flying and steel. That's a badass combo.
That's Skarmory territory. I'm pretty
That's what
sure.
I'm saying, dude.
That's
That's
Skarmory
way out
territory.
here.
And he looks. I'm gonna be real, dude. He looks way more cool than Skarmory.
I agree. That's what I'm saying. The Pokemon of this gen visually really, really, really caught me.
Yes.
Absolutely messed with it.
Agreed. God, I can't get over the animations. They just look so freaking good. I'm so excited. It looks like just so stunning.
Funny thing is though, like half the competitive players are just gonna turn animations off if they can. That's like the Pokemon Classic is like all the like competitive people are like, oh, it slows the game down. Fuck that. I'm just gonna turn it off. Like, but in this game, like all I want to see. I want to see the extravagance.
Dude, the avatars are so over the top in this game. Like these,
That's what I'm saying, man.
it's awesome.
Dude, imagine someday they made a Pokemon MMORPG. I'd fucking.
There is one. It's called Pokemon One, but I don't think it's affiliated with like Game Freak or anything like that.
It's not. It's not.
It's like a fan made thing.
Yeah, it's a fan made thing. It's kind of wonky. There's a Pokemon mobile game now, by the way, too. That's in development. It should be coming out this year.
Awesome. I mean, I'll definitely take more of those. I'm not a huge fan of Pokemon Go, but it was a huge success. I definitely had my fun with it at first. Oh, that's got to be the evolution of Dreadnite, and that's got to be the evolution of Corvi, right? Like,
well, no. Those are like the
those
max.
are the max version. Okay.
Yeah. That's like the whole like max thing. Is they get huge, and they get like stat buffs, and I think that's kind of how like the raiding stuff works too. Like you'll raid against like a maxed out Pokemon, and like they'll use it's like Final Fantasy combat style. Like they'll use like multiple attacks in a turn, and then you use multiple Pokemon to attack it, and they'll go back to their turn, and it'll use like a crazy move that'll hit your whole party or whoever's like fighting for you. So you'll like 3v1 or 4v1 these like maxed out Pokemon, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's like how the raid shit works.
This is the mobile game you're referring to, Pokemon Masters.
Yeah, Pokemon Masters.
Looks very cool.
It's way more like trainers and like Pokemon battling centric. I'm pretty sure it's like the other side of Pokemon that's absent in Pokemon Go. So like it's literally what it says on screen. You take all these trainers from like the past games and stuff. You build up a party and you just battle.
Cool. I'm all for it. I mean,
yeah, dude, having that on my phone seems fucking sick.
Yeah, that feels like a layup.
That's what I'm saying, man.
I mean, this makes perfect sense as to why they're taking their handheld community and kind of merging it with console, and then they have like this mobile thing on the side. It just makes sense.
Absolutely. I mean, I know I'm gonna play this, like no question. This is my shit. I'm down with that.
100%.
Can definitely mess. I think again, like it fills both niches in terms of the Pokemon world. You get the exploring component with Pokemon Go, and you get the battle component with Pokemon Masters. I think Game Freak, Nintendo, they've
got all the bases covered for this one.
For real, better than most any company ever could.
Yep, Nintendo has just been killing it, man.
Yeah,
we said it before in our last episode, but they are really like on top of their game right now. They have really pulled ahead of Microsoft and Sony.
Dude, without a question, yeah. I get those companies are also like kind of diving off into other ambitions and shit. Like they're kind of out here trying to do like VR and like cloud gaming and stuff.
Everyone's trying to find the next big thing.
Yeah, exactly. But in terms of traditional gaming, Nintendo has the reins, and they're fucking riding as far away from fucking Sony and Microsoft as they can.
Yeah. 100%. Do you think this new game Sword and Shield is actually going to like yield a competitive scene for Pokemon? I mean, I know that the handheld games I know that they do have like a smaller competitive scene, but do you think this is like the launching pad for a real like, larger scale scene?
Not really, to be honest. I don't think I don't think Pokemon competitive will ever get any bigger than it is right now or has been in the past. I think it's it kind of is what it is. A meta develops. Obviously, they can patch and change the game, but like the comps just kind of, for the most part, stay what they are. Like what's S tier, what's not. People building together, battle, and it all becomes very stock. There isn't a lot of surprise to it, and frankly, not a lot you can do to shake things up. And I think that's kind of like what makes a good esport is dynamicism, the ability for you to do something that could potentially shake up the meta or
Mm-hmm.
overtly counter things in the meta. And I'm not saying that Pokemon is like devoid of that and not able to facilitate something like that, but functionally they've never patched it in accordance to that, you know? They're not patching Pokemon balance to facilitate the competitive scene typically. They
Yeah,
just
but
don't.
this is a new this is a new frontier for Pokemon. I think that potential is there. I think that we're gonna see what kind of scene evolves from whatever they get on Twitch, which presumably, at least at first, will be really large. Everybody will be playing, and we're gonna see what happens when the dust settles. And if there's a seed for it, I mean, I don't know. Like Nintendo isn't too good about facilitating competitive scenes for their games, even the most competitive of games, like Smash Ultimate and whatnot. It's like
That's what I'm saying. Like,
here's your tournament, guys. Here's your Nintendo sponsored tournament. Smash Balls are on.
yeah,
Hazard's on.
exactly. That's what I'm
So
saying.
I don't know if they get it like that. And that's if I had one major criticism of Nintendo, that would be it. Like they don't know how to get their games in a competitive format, or they do and they
Yeah.
just don't want to.
And I don't know. We'll see if they ultimately do. I can't be certain, I guess.
And you
Because
know
they
what?
have,
I respect that decision by Nintendo. Gaming for fun and everything. I love it. It's wholesome, but I can't help but feel like it's 2019 and there's money on the table.
yeah.
That's money left on the
I,
table.
I don't know, man. They're very unwavering in that. And when you think of the entire populace of people playing Pokemon, just how many people are going to purchase this game, I just can't see a world where Nintendo is balancing and rebalancing Pokemon and their stats for the sake of what's going on at the top cut of play. I just can't picture it. Now, if they do, great. I would love to be wrong. I would
They're
appreciate
doing
being
it. They
wrong.
are doing it as far as balance goes. Like they're actually doing it for Smash Ultimate. Like they are very. It's very evident that they pay very close attention to the Smash Ultimate competitive scene
They
from
definitely
the
do.
balance changes. Their balance
Yes.
changes have been like fantastic. All three patches for Smash have been right on the money. Like exactly just what we needed. You know.
I agree with that for sure.
So I think they definitely can. It's just a question of this is Pokemon, not Smash. Like
Yeah,
will they?
but that's the thing. Like it potentially trickles down and affects like other parts of the game where Smash is just like if you rebalance things, it doesn't affect what goes on like
The
down
game
the
is still the
ladder.
same.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the game is still the same.
Yeah.
Like Pokemon, like I mean, not that it's that intrinsically powerful where like if you buff or nerf or change something about a Pokemon early on, it will affect someone's gameplay experience, but like it would more than in a Smash game.
Yes. Agreed. Agreed.
So we'll
I think
see.
there's a
I don't know.
chance. I think there's a
There's definitely a
chance.
chance. If the money is there, there's a chance. But the money is there for Smash, and they somewhat reject
And you get
it,
Smash
so we'll see.
Balls.
But that's also related to like the moral methodology behind the development of Smash in the first place. It's different people working on this game, thus potentially different plans
Yeah.
competitively.
I think it's a matter of them seeing what's going on Twitch, assessing their audience, and seeing the long term activity that they get for the game, which I think is gonna be pretty good now that people can actually have a Pokemon game, like a full blown like new gen Pokemon game that they can stream. Like I think it's gonna get good activity.
Agreed.
And I
Definitely
think
agreed.
inherently there's going to be, some competition that spawns from that, whether it be, competition through speed running or actual battling. I don't know, but we'll see what
There's
happens.
always a little of both, so we'll see. I'm sure there will be vastly more of either.
Yeah. All right. Well, anything else you want to say about Sword and Shield and Go To before we call it a wrap on this episode?
No, honestly, I think that covers all the bases with the information that we currently have out. I think we'll definitely talk about it more in future episodes as information kind of piles in. But I think at a broad scale, we've kind of hit on most everything.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. All right. Well, I think that's a good place to end for this episode,
I
guys.
agree.
As far as like next episode is concerned, Joey is going on it's a 3-week tour, right?
Yeah, 3-week tour.
Nice 3-week
Full
tour.
US.
Full US with his band Typecast. Check him out. Follow him on Twitter. Follow him on IG.
Mm-hmm. full US. Going by you. Typecast in Vatican. Come hang out.
Yeah, come
to the
through.
show. It's coming to your town.
Come chill, because they're coming to you. So why not?
Typecast with an E. There's like a Southeast Asian band called Typecast, but ours has an E at the end. We're not as popular as them, but we are touring the States.
All right.
Add the E and you'll see. But
well, that's where we're gonna leave off for today, guys. I myself will be back in 30 minutes. We've got Dojo Wars 9 coming up. We got our crew battle. So for those of you that are still in the chat that are gonna be there, I'll see you in a few. And as far as another ATA, we'll see you when you get back from Summer of Fear.
Exactly. That's the plan. We'll be back soon.
All right, boys and girls, signing off.
Later.